You're listening to the Joe and Rosa Show, proclaiming the gospel through word and through song.
Hi, and welcome to the Joe and Rosa Show. I'm Joe.
And I'm Rosa.
And today on our show, we have Mary Kaarto, author of the book, what was your book called, Mary?
Hope for the Laid Off Devotionals.
Hope for the Laid Off. And you did Help for the Laid Off, too, didn't you?
Yes, Help for the Laid Off was my first book.
Mary Kaarto is an author of a series of 3 books that are for laid off people. So can you tell us about your ministry? How did you get started to writing particularly for the audience of people who find themselves laid off or underemployed?
I really appreciate that question. I was a single mom for almost 20 years, and I have been through 2 separate 2-year layoffs, all while a single mom. And the first layoff was 1992 to 1994. My daughter was 9 years old, and God really got my attention through that, and He provided a lot of many miraculous provisions, and it was really a new thing for me. I was raised to believe in God, but I didn't know God, and so it was phenomenal to really realize, wow, He really is real. He really does come through, and you cannot go through a 2-year layoff as a single mom, and back then my unemployment benefits were only 6 months. You can't go through something like that, run out of unemployment benefits, still have a child, and watch all of your needs being met miraculously, and not know there's a God at the end of that. And so not only was that first layoff such a huge blessing, my daughter and I both learned so many lessons and tips, and that's what's covered in Help for the Laid Off. But at the end of that first 2-year layoff, not only did I get a job, I got the career change of my dreams without a college degree, without formal training, without a mentor, without a foot in the door. What I had was God, and I had a crazy idea to take a risk, believe in myself, believe that this was what I was really called to do, and you know what? It worked out. So I went from secretary to full-time editorial, writing and traveling for a living. I covered oil and gas for the next 8 years. All of a sudden, 2002, 2004, laid off again. The awesome thing was when my boss, the second boss, said, lay off, downsizing, it was weird. My immediate reaction, and this is exactly what I said in my tone of voice, I said, oh, that's okay. It just means I have something better to do. I don't know what it is yet, but don't worry about it. I'm good.
Wow,
that's really exactly how I felt.
Yeah, that's faith there.
Yeah, because of everything I went through the first layoff, and I saw all of my needs being met, I knew God would take care of us again, and boy, did He. And 3 weeks after my second layoff, I fell 16 feet out of a tree. I was trying to prune the tree myself, lost my balance, broke my leg, and about a week later, I was in my home office, and okay, I was crying. And I said, are you kidding me? Why did you allow me to be laid off again? And especially, why did I have to have this accident? I mean, hello, I am housebound, howling at the moon in pain. I can't drive. I need a job. What is the deal? And very quickly, the response was, I want you to write a book about trusting me as your divine employer during a layoff. And to be very quick, that's how Help for the Laid Off was written. That's why it was written. It came out very quickly, and that's how it got written.
So that book was written from your direct experiences, having been laid off, having faith.
Yeah, having gone through the first 2-year layoff, and Help for the Laid Off was written during my second layoff. That is so important because when you read it, you read the beginning, and the reader will read, I'm saying, in other words, I'm right in the trenches with you. I've just been laid off again, but, I know it's going to be okay, and here's why. And so I shared some of the lessons I learned, job tips, ways to save money. I used my journalism skills to interview marriage and family counselors, financial planners. I interviewed somebody from Gallagher, Gray and Christmas, which is one of the country's leading recruitment firms. So Help for the Laid-Off is really filled with solid, practical advice for people. It is spiritually based, but it's also got a lot of really good practical tips. And what's so funny is it was, like I said, it was written during my second layoff, but here's the kicker. It was miraculously published 5 years later. I got a traditional publishing contract. Now, why do I say miraculous? Well, because I had gotten married about less than a year before I got the contract. So my name changed, my email changed, my phone number changed, my address changed. Doesn't it kind of make you wonder, how did this publisher in Florida find me with a manuscript with my maiden name and where I used to live and all that old contact information?
Absolutely.
Is that not amazing?
Absolutely.
That's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's God. It's awesome.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's how the first book came about.
Wow. So I would have to ask you this. If our listener is out there and they're listening to this program and they are currently finding themselves laid off, what would you speak directly to that person who is listening right now?
I am so glad for that question, Rosa. Thank you. To anybody who's listening to this program, first of all, I want you to know I know exactly what you're going through because I have been through it for a total of 4 years as a single mom. As I mentioned earlier, I was raised to believe in God, but I did not know Him. And if you don't believe in God, or maybe you have, like me, were raised to have some sort of faith, but you've never really connected, I suspect it's a very good possibility that maybe God has allowed you to be laid off, as He did me, in order to get my attention, in order to get me to start asking questions. Are you out there? Do you care about me? Show me who you are. That is the biggest piece of advice I could ever give anybody, but especially to somebody who is going through a layoff, and you're out of money, you're out of bullets, you're out of gas, but you still have bills to pay, you still have mouths to feed. I've already shared with you just a couple of the ways God has worked in my life. And what's so nice is that He loves everybody equally. Okay? You don't have to be a perfect person because there is no perfect person other than His Son, Jesus. And the fact that I was able to get the career change of my dreams in spite of not having all the advantages that the world will tell you you need to have, that didn't come from me. That came from God helping me, giving me ideas, giving me courage, giving me answers to questions that I asked. What He's done for me, He will do for you because He has a good plan for your life. And what I also know is that just because you've had a whole career maybe doing, a certain type of job does not mean you can't do your dream job. I am living proof. I'm living proof. And I just would challenge you to, ask questions and wait and hear from Him. Find a local church, walk in that church, and see if God doesn't speak to you.
Now, let me just ask you. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just ask you this because I think that the listener may have this question because I know this is what's coming up to me. You're talking about your dream job, something that the world would definitely say you were not qualified to do. And that you wrote a book. Conventional publishing is something that happens less and less all the time. So that in itself is a miracle, and all these different things that happen. Had you never been laid off, do you think that any of those things would have happened?
No. No. Absolutely not. I had to be forced. I used to be a person full of pride. And because, you know what, for all my life, I always took care of myself. I was always able to take care of my daughter and I. No problem. I never had to ask anybody for anything. And I took great pride in that, even though I was a secretary, and nothing against secretaries. So please don't misunderstand me. I'm not judging. Secretarial work paid my bills for 20 years. And I'm so grateful for that. But I had to be put into a situation where I was absolutely desperate. I mean, the unemployment benefits back in 1992 were nowhere near the amount people receive today. And I know people listening today are saying, well, that's nothing. But back then it was hundreds of dollars less, and they only lasted 6 months. Only until I had the rug pulled out from under me, I had no leg to stand on. I had nobody to call on. Nobody in my family could help. It's, you do what you have to do. And I really felt like, okay, what else am I going to do but go to church and see, and I did. And I don't know how much time we have, but I have a really miraculous story of God's first miracle in my life during my first layoff. I don't know if we have time, but I will leave that to you.
We're coming up on the end of our program. I'm so sorry. Can you tell our listeners where they can find your book and also the free gift that they'll get when they order your book from your website?
Yes, thank you. My website is Mary Kaarto. I will spell it MaryKaarto.com. That's 2 A's, MaryKaarto.com. For anybody that buys through my website, my devotional book, which is Hope for the Laid Off Devotionals, I will automatically give them a free copy of the first book, which is Help for the Laid Off. I want people to have the hope and the help that they need. I understand what it's like to not have any money at all. I understand that, and that's why I'm making this free book available when you buy the first book. It's basically 2 books for the price of 1. The books are the same price as on Amazon, but Amazon does not have a heart. I have a heart. I want to help you. My email address is marykaarto@marykaarto.com. If you have any questions, if you need somebody to talk to, listen to, Skype with, I am there for you. I have never turned anyone down, and I never will.
I am absolutely amazed by God's fingerprints all over this story, and I pray that it blesses our listeners. I thank you so much for being a guest on our show today. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you. God bless.
And you can find Rosa's blog on lifeinsidethehouseontherock.com, and you can find us on YouTube. Just look for Joe and Rosa Hopkins. And we thank you for joining us this week.